Okay, this is kind of a pointless video, I'll say that right now, because it's a video largely about stuff that happened years ago that no one should care about anymore. And hell, even at the time, it was kind of pointless internet drama. But people just keep bringing it up due to recent events. So I just figured, why not? I'll just say that some of the people whining and complaining about this really shouldn't be doing that. So, brief background information for those unaware. The Nostalgia Critic is currently a YouTube show, but it's been around since before, well, not since before YouTube, but it was around before YouTube really got big, and it was actually on its own website and everything. It's run by a guy whose real name is Doug Walker, and it's just a guy making fun of movies and TV shows. You know, he used to largely just make fun of really terrible movies, but more recently he's moved on and has started talking about stuff he actually likes, but still poking fun at it. And he doesn't take himself very seriously. I'm just bringing this up right now. He's been around on the internet for, I think 2007 is when he started, so he's been around for quite a while. And he doesn't take himself very seriously. Just keep that in mind as we go ahead. Like, everyone takes him way more seriously than he takes himself, because he's just a dude who's there to joke and goof off, and everyone else seems to think that he's trying to create high art. I've actually been meaning to make this for a little while, but I just kept putting it off, because a couple of weeks ago, Doug Walker, the guy who plays the Nostalgia Critic, had a cameo on a Adult Swim show called Smiling Friends. Now, I don't watch that show. I don't have any real love for it or hate for it or anything. It exists.
Hello, I'm Daniel the Demon Slayer. I slay demons so you don't have to. So you've encountered Ophelia Diabulu's demon and you've decided to slay it. Before we get to that, though, this video is brought to you by the Dollar Shave Club.
Sorry, let me just skip ahead of that.
Thank you. But he had a small cameo on that show, and he was happy with it. A lot of other people were happy with it. But the people who don't like Doug Walker, the Nostalgia Critic, they tend to forget that, again, that's a character. They just kind of lump both of them together. But the people who don't like one or the other or both just lost their minds for, like, an entire day over that. And this is something that has been going on for years and years now. Like, anytime he gets brought up, they just lose their minds about it for like a day. And hell, a lot of people, I don't feel like naming names because some of these people are like actual notable YouTubers and stuff, and I don't want to be accused of drama farming. And also, some of the people who do this, I do enjoy their stuff outside of it. But they'll just randomly bring him up apropos of nothing and then complain for a while, just for attention. It's very strange how, on certain corners of the internet, Doug Walker has become, like, Satan incarnate, and I, for the life of me, cannot fucking figure out why. So basically, the Nostalgia Critic used to be part of a network of other creators who, again, they were not always on YouTube, but nowadays they're pretty much all on YouTube, who did similar stuff. You know, they also talked about movies, books, TV shows, video games, whatever. It was called Channel Awesome, and that all broke up and ended around 2018. And without going into excruciating detail about it, because, again, it's kind of pointless, basically some people who used to work there and some who currently did work there made a big document complaining about stuff that happened to them while they were there. And it was like 70 some odd pages long. And you think, 70 pages of abuse? That sounds so horrible. But the thing is, 90% of what was there was just not a big deal. Like, you can just take it, throw it out, it doesn't matter. Because it's literally just, so-and-so was a jerk to me. And it's like, I mean, that sucks, but okay. It honestly sounds like it was a very toxic environment, and it wasn't just because of the management, it was because of a lot of the people who were there. Like, around the time this came out, I watched a video from a guy named Count Jacula. I'll link to the video in the description. He used to be part of Channel Awesome, and he basically just made a video explaining that, yeah, this is an extremely toxic environment, and there's a lot of good reasons why people left. And then that last 10%, some of it was pretty bad, and some of it was, as information came out over time, it was revealed that it was either grossly exaggerated, so we shouldn't be that upset about it to begin with, it was just straight up made up, or it's kind of a he said, she said situation where both sides are giving one end of the story and neither really has proper evidence to support it. So again, most of this just wound up not being that big a deal. And Channel Awesome did handle it unprofessionally, so I don't blame people for leaving or for having a negative view of them after that. But most of the stuff that was brought up just isn't worth getting upset about. Like, good example, probably the worst thing that was mentioned in the document was that they allegedly covered up for one of their members being a rapist, but that's just not what happened. Like, the guy, his name was Jew Wario, and he's actually dead now, so we can talk about him all we want. But they found out that he raped somebody, and they fired him when they found out, is the thing. But because he was under contract, it took like 2 weeks for the whole process to go through. But when they found out, they did fire him, whereas people were saying they protected him and kept him around, and that's not what happened. And also, they didn't go public with it at the time, but that's because the victim didn't want to. So, I mean, there's not really any way you could spin that as them covering up for a rapist, and that was probably the worst thing that got mentioned. And on top of that, Doug Walker himself, I know I might have gotten a little off topic there, he was not mentioned to be somebody who was really abusing his workers. He was just, from what was shown in the document, he just seemed incompetent, which, yeah, he didn't have any managerial experience, and suddenly he was in charge of employees. Like, okay, I believe that he'd be incompetent, and I believe that would suck for the people underneath him, but there is a pretty substantial difference between incompetence and malice, and everyone seems to act like it was malice, but it just wasn't. A couple of weeks before the Smiling Friends thing came out, Doug Walker put out a Nostalgia Critic video about poorly aged Bill Cosby commercials, and I actually watched it. It was extremely fucking funny. I'll tell you that right now, because it's, again, just Bill Cosby acting like, you know, how he used to act, like a wholesome, family-friendly dude, and knowing what we now know, the commercials aged very poorly. But people were extraordinarily butthurt. How dare Doug Walker make jokes about rape? And he's not. Like, you can watch the video. He's not making jokes about rape. He's making jokes about how Bill Cosby is an awful person. But because Doug Walker did it, therefore, again, remember, he's Satan incarnate. We must be mad at him. And the most infamous version of this sort of thing happening was when he put out his video on The Wall, like, I think it was 5 years ago now. And to be clear, that video is pretty bad. But, again, people just get into this spiral. I'm not going to call it a cycle, even. I'm going to call it a spiral, where they're trying to one-up each other while psychoanalyzing the guy's work and explaining how, oh, well, actually, him making a crappy YouTube video one time means that he is ontologically incapable of thought or creativity. And this time I'm going to specifically mention the Folding Ideas video. Like, Dan Olson is honestly just a bully who hides his bullying with an intellectual veneer, let's call it. Because he tried doing a similar video on the Angry Video Game Nerd recently, and even in that he admitted that he couldn't come up with real reasons to hate the guy, but he just does. I don't know, it just felt, especially the AVGN one, it just felt self-filleting, and it felt like it was wrapping itself in irony so that he could use, oh, well, you clearly just didn't understand the video I made as an excuse. And it just, I don't know. Anyways, the point is, Walker has historically just been very good at taking criticism, like substantially better than people nowadays on the internet, or the most people nowadays on the internet, but also substantially more than a lot of his other Channel Awesome producers. And one of the reasons that he wound up on Smiling Friends is because the people who made that show made fun of him on YouTube a while ago, and he just laughed along with it, like, publicly. He was like, yeah, it's fine, it's not a big deal.
You know, this person only plays, you know, people have given you some slight ribbing, you know, people have teased you a little bit, mocked you in a fun way.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Here's someone doing your scream. This is Only Plays doing your scream.
Do Doug Walker yelling.
and you've always had a good sense of humor about
But they also made fun of a guy named Linkara, who was also a Channel Awesome producer and was one of the main people who left back in 2018 and made a big stink out of it. And again, not going to get too hard on him for that because it does sound like a toxic environment. But he also got made fun of by the same people, and he just threw a fit about it very publicly. Like, he's not good at taking criticism. And so you look at these things side by side and you realize, like, okay, Doug Walker, when he's doing the Nostalgia Critic, is playing a character. Most of the other people at Channel Awesome seem to actually think they were making high art, and they were just like that. So I've mentioned once or twice before I don't really like Lindsay Ellis, and I guess now's the time to just briefly mention it, because it's not that big a deal. I think a lot of her content is very good. Not all of it, but I think a lot of it is. My problem with her is that her, and a lot of other people like her, are just judgmental sticks in the mud who take themselves way too seriously and have basically no sense of humor, and I just don't like people like that. Even if they're correct about certain things and they sometimes say stuff that I enjoy watching them say, and I go, oh, that's really interesting. I'm glad to be here and see it say that. Like, her and a lot of people like that, I just don't like them for that reason, for that personal reason. And, well, there's no going around it. Like, that corner of the internet is the one that loses their shit every time they even remember that the Nostalgia Critic exists as a thing. And because they don't like the guy who made it, they have to go way deep into the weeds and try and explain why his content is the worst shit ever made. And to be clear, if somebody personally knew him and he was a shitty boss to them or to their friends, I can give him a pass for disliking the guy, but you have to dislike him for actual things that he's done. You can't just make things up or lie or exaggerate, because that doesn't help anything. But anyways, like I said at the beginning of this, he clearly doesn't take himself too seriously when he's doing the Nostalgia Critic. Like, he's just having fun and poking fun at movies and stuff, and occasionally he'll make an actual salient point, but that's it. He's not making a 3-hour-long video essay that he spent 8 months making, and talking about how The Room handled race relations really badly or something. Like, he's just poking fun at movies, poking fun at TV shows. And full disclosure, I did meet him once at a con. He seemed like a really nice guy then, but I mean, again, he's talking to fans at a convention. That's not really knowing somebody personally. But I combine that experience with seeing him in interviews and stuff, and it's clear, like, okay, yeah, he's just having fun, and people don't seem to grasp that, It's just such a strange situation, strange phenomena, I don't know, but they look at Nostalgia Critic and they say, he disliked Moulin Rouge, that means everything he says is bad. And I'm like, what? Like, that's actually a thing that I saw somebody claim a while ago. Like, I like Moulin Rouge. The Nostalgia Critic review of Moulin Rouge was very negative. He did not like that movie. We disagree. We have a difference of opinion here. It's fine. Like, if you're going to go into objective criticism shit, then you may as well go talk to chuds like EFAP and Nerdrotic, Mahler, Shadiversity, all them, where they try and declare that, their beliefs and their opinions, which are, their opinions on movies are entirely based in their political and religious beliefs, but if a movie doesn't match up with their political and religious beliefs, it is objectively bad. Like, if that's what you want, go talk to those guys. And I think that's why Nostalgia Critic, while he's not nearly as big as he used to be, is still around and still has an audience, is because so much media criticism nowadays falls into the camp of either, like I said, like, this is woke trash, we must cry about it and claim that Western civilization is falling because there's a black person in Star Wars, or it goes into the, like I mentioned earlier, 3-hour-long video essay about how The Room is racist or something, And I'm not saying either of those are inherently well, okay, the right-wing one is definitely inherently bad, but the other one isn't inherently bad, and they do at least understand the basics of writing and filmmaking a lot better than the other camp of people, but that's not always what we're looking for. Sometimes people are just looking for, okay, what's this movie like? Is it good or bad? Let's make a couple dick jokes along the way. Like, you'll notice when I talk about books, I'm not afraid to get political when it comes up, but 95% of the time I don't, because it's just not really relevant to what I'm talking about. sometimes media criticism and discussion is just media criticism and discussion. You're not really making high art. You're just having fun and talking about stuff that you like or dislike with people. And sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's intellectually stimulating, but that's it. And I think the Nostalgia Critic has stuck around as long as he has because he manages to just be a charming and somewhat charismatic and just enjoyable person to be around, whereas a lot of other people who talk about the exact same sort of thing are none of those things. They're not charismatic, they're not charming, they're not intelligent, and because of that, I think that most of the people who, again, just bring him up completely out of nowhere sometimes. I really want to emphasize that. Like, it happens completely out of nowhere, and even when it's not out of nowhere, they're, excuse me, just blowing up and losing their shit on the guy because he was on an episode of an Adult Swim show. Like, again, just, if nothing else comes from this video, let this be a lesson to you. If you can take criticism well and roll with the punches like a champion, the way Walker has, because whatever other flaws you may have, or whatever other issues the guy may have, he's good at that. And if you can do that, it opens a lot of doors for you, because no one likes you if you're acting like a whiny little bitch. That's remember my video on how to deal with bullying? Yeah, just remember that. Anyways, this is Rambled. I've been rambling on for a little while. Goodbye.